Ronald was a wonderful person. And he was honored 8 weeks before he died by the Ivy Society. Good health, goes home, he depicted that his work was Alzheimer's. His daughter said one day he woke up and he was sweating. He thought he had Alzheimer's. 7 days later. Which
is a blessing.
sometimes cancer.
My cousin was the teacher for most of the day. He's been my wife's for the past 8 days. And we go back and forth with cousin.
Case 687531, State of Ohio versus Jaden Sorensen. Good morning, Mr. Sorensen.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Mr. Sorensen is in court with his attorneys, Henry Hilo and James Hoflich. Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor.
We are also here in case 685345, State of Ohio versus Catherine Treadway. Good morning, Ms. Treadway.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Ms. Treadway is in court with her attorneys, Jim McDonald and Mary Jo Tipping.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
On behalf of the State of Ohio, our prosecutors Kevin Filiatro and Eric Collins. We are here for sentencing on both of these cases. On behalf of your client, Mr. Hoflich, Mr. Hilo, is there any reason not to move forward?
No, we're prepared to go forward, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you also had the opportunity to review the pre-sentence investigation for your client?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. I have received the supplemental information that you submitted on behalf of Mr. Sorensen, and I have reviewed all of that, all of those certificates, letters, everything you've included. On behalf of your client, Ms. Tipping or Mr. McDonald, is there any reason not to move forward?
No, Your Honor.
And have you had the opportunity to review the pre-sentence investigation as well as the sentencing memoranda prepared by on behalf of the State of Ohio?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Filiatro.
Thank you, Judge. Your Honor, would you like the state's comments as to both defendants or one at a time?
How would you prefer to handle this? The court is fine to defer with whatever works best for you.
I can speak about both of them, Judge.
That sounds fair.
Your Honor, as you know, we're here because on September 28, 2023, a life was taken, a young, innocent life, 3 years old, doing probably the most innocent thing that can be done, which is just sitting in his car seat while his mom is about to drive him somewhere. that happens every day in every part of this city and every city in this country. There are certain places where kids should be safe. Their home, their school, their car, with their parents. And Luis wasn't. And his lack of being safe that day had nothing to do with his mother, had nothing to do with anyone he was with, except for the upstairs neighbor, Catherine Treadway, and what was going on in her life. That's why Luis Diaz wasn't safe. That's why he ended up dead that day. Your Honor, you sat through the trial for Juan Davis and Devontae Parker, and so you know the facts of what happened. And we got into a little bit of what Catherine Treadway was doing that day in that trial, but not all of it. I'll get back to that in a moment. I want to point out at this point, with me today, Judge, are members of Luis Diaz's family, as you can see. They're here, they've been here every step of the way in this case. Unfortunately, his mother, Angelica, is not with us today. She is ill and is unable to be at court today. As you can imagine, Judge, this is very difficult for this family. Coming into court, I'm not sure any were able to say anything in court today, and a lot of which is because it's just so hard to deal with. So I'll do the speaking. Let's begin with Jaden Sorensen, Judge. 16 years old at the time, and you know from this trial that before September 28, 2023, Mr. Sorensen was no stranger to guns, no stranger to using them for show, for play, for all sorts of purposes. It was all over his phone, some of which were poses involving other people, most notably Devontae Parker. That didn't matter at all until before September 28, 2023, but it certainly mattered after. Jaden Sorensen made choices that day. He made choices to go with the adults. He made choices to take a gun with him, to follow Devontae Parker to that spot behind the trees, and to pull the trigger of the gun he was holding. Those choices were all bad, and he is here to pay for them today. But I want to say this about Jaden Sorensen as well. When he was arrested 2 days later, he made another choice. And he chose to tell police what happened. And I note this because in a case full of horrible decisions made by all of the adults, when it came to the death of a child, it took the courage of another child to tell the police what happened and who did it. That's noteworthy. It's noteworthy about him, and it's noteworthy about the others who, when given their opportunities, did not make that choice. So when it comes to Jaden Sorensen, Judge, you know what he did, and we're asking for you to sentence him within the range that's been agreed to and agreed to be recommended today. We're going to recommend that range to you, somewhere between 10 and 20 years for him. But I want to note all the things about Jaden Sorensen, the things he did on the 28th and the thing he did on the 30th. when it came to resolving his case, I did not feel the need to even get another statement from him. I did not feel the need to sit down with him prior to entering the plea. Because he said what happened. And of course, he lied during that interview, as many people do when they speak to the police. But he told the truth about who did it, who was with him. And some of the things he didn't know were why it happened. Why this car? Why this street? Why this house? He had no idea. And that speaks to his and Devontae Parker's involvement, Juan Davis's involvement, and Catherine Treadway. So let's talk about Catherine Treadway now, Judge. As you know, in August of 2023, Catherine Treadway, who lived above Angelica and her family, had an incident with Juan Davis. That incident led her to call the police and for the police to come out and to take statements. They took a statement from her and they took a statement from Angelica, because that was a case of an alleged aggravated burglary and domestic violence. So of course they'll talk to Catherine Treadway, the victim of the incident, and anyone else who lived in that same building. That would be Angelica. He was not arrested until after his indictment in that case on September 15th. September 13th he was indicted, September 15th he was arrested. September 19th he was arraigned and made bond. And part of that bond was no contact with Catherine Treadway, court supervised release, and GPS monitoring. And then we move on. His first pretrial is September 27th. Why do I mention all this? Because Catherine Treadway, after he was released from jail, had many communications with Juan Davis. She texted him many times. She called him many times. And it was after that pretrial on the 27th. First off, that morning she told him, "I'm not coming to court. You told me not to, and I won't." She wants him back in her life. And it's sometime after that, later that day, is when she begins calling him using star 67. I looked at those records over the weekend. Between that time, which was around 12:30 on the 27th through 2:30 on the 28th, so that covers the time during which the shooting happened, she called Juan Davis 99 times using star 67. Not once did she call him without using star 67. Which begs the question, what was that for? Was that for Juan Davis to not know she was calling? Or was that for everyone else to not know she was calling? 99 times, and she spoke with him several of the times. I note some of those in the sentencing memo here. And when you look at this in conjunction with what was going on with Juan Davis, she wanted him back in her life. He wants this court case over. She's telling him she's not going to court. It puts what happened in unique light. Because, and as you know, Angelica testified that she was leaving this house. She packed up her things, she put her kids, she didn't put her kids. Catherine Treadway put her child, Luis Diaz, into his car seat. Angelica didn't notice it at the time, didn't know its significance, but Catherine Treadway also moved her car out of the driveway and down the street. All the while, having all these phone calls with Juan Davis, someone who wasn't supposed to be there. And because of his GPS monitoring, he didn't go there. He went right around the corner and dropped two guys off to do what he wanted. But how would he know who is there other than to get that information from Catherine Treadway? Treadway calls him so many times. 1:04 p.m., 48 seconds, just to highlight a few. 2:03 p.m., 1 minute, 38 seconds. 2:10, 6 seconds. 2:10, 17 seconds. 2:12, 5 seconds. 2:12, 28 seconds. 2:14, 47 seconds. Why does this all matter? Because it's during all that time when Juan Davis has the idea to go and switch his car, to get the Mercedes, to get Sorensen and Parker, and to drive over and have them do something. Something specific. Take these guns, go to that spot, shoot across the street, shoot into a car. The timing is too precise to be random. That the car they shot into was driven by Angelica and leaving at that moment. Catherine moved her car. She knew what was going to happen. All of this the court knows from the trial. But what I mentioned earlier, the contrast between Jaden Sorensen, who when he was arrested, told the truth. Here's what Catherine Treadway did that day. She called 911 after calling Juan Davis. There was a witness who heard her complaining about his involvement in this shooting that just happened. But she calls 911, doesn't mention his name. Police go out there, and there's body camera of many police officers speaking to her. She literally has Luis Diaz's blood on her pants and does not mention Juan Davis's name. Does not mention what she knows. Surmises that maybe this involved Luis's father somehow. She does TV interviews. She was on Channel 3 that night. She was on Channel 19 that night. She had text messages from Channel 5. All of whom wanted to talk to this person who appeared to be a good Samaritan and a witness to this horrible tragedy. Never once mentioning she knew who was involved. And then that night, where does she go? She takes her phone, gives it to a relative. She takes another phone and goes and sees Juan Davis at his house in Cleveland Heights. Never once mentioning to anyone what she knows. She's arrested that night. And that's the difference. That's the difference between her and a child that was involved in this case. In one of these police interviews, she's holding Ezekiel, who Angelica left with her and the neighbor to be with her son who died. She's literally holding the 11-month-old, knowing what happened and not saying. As I said, Judge, the adults in this case made choices. And those choices have consequences. Catherine Treadway, Your Honor, knew what was going to happen that day. She knew what did happen that day. And then pretended for the world that she didn't. All for the benefit of Juan Davis, who we'll get to later this morning. If I could just have a moment, Judge.
You may take your time.
I'd like to bring up a member of Luis's family.
Good morning. Can you tell me your name?
Leonor Rivera.
Can you spell that, please?
Leonor. Rivera is Rivera.
Good morning, Ms. Rivera. What are you holding?
My hero. This is Luis Diaz. This is my grandson. And I want Justin for my baby. They took him away on September 28th. He was our hero. This is my family. And my life is not the same no more without him. He was special. I have other grandkids, but he was very special. They took my heart, and I want justice for my son. His father is here. He can. Our life is changed without him. So,
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry.
thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, sir. Can you tell me your name?
Yes, my name is Christian Taulet.
Did you spell that, sir?
Christian, and the last name is Taulet.
Mr. Tollett, what are you holding?
This is the picture of my grandson, Luis.
Is you holding him?
Yes.
How old was he in that photo?
They're like 2.
Okay. What would you like me to know, sir?
First, I'd like to thank God for the opportunity of another day. The Cleveland police for doing their job and the quick response, capturing the people involved of taking my grandson's life. Also, the prosecutors for taking it all the way and making sure that they are paying for what they did. I don't think I was going to say this, but for the young man that stepped up and made it clear, let everybody know what happened and how it went down, God will probably forgive you. I've been here 25 years, never had a problem with the law. This is the first time I come here, and the reason it's not the best. I miss my grandson a lot. And I used to see this on the news. Never thought it was going to happen to me or my family. And it did. And now, when I see this type of cases on the news, I cry. I know how that family gotta feel, how the dad gotta feel, how all the members gotta feel. And all I want to say is, I hope that you give them the maximum sentence that is required by law for the crime that they committed. That's all I gotta say. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you, sir. I'm so sorry.
Hello, Your Honor.
Can you tell me your name?
Salinas Rios,
Could you spell that for me?
Celines. Rios, Rios. Callahan, Callahan.
And you, sir?
I'm Louis, the father.
Is your last name Diaz?
Yeah.
D-I-A-Z, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who would like to speak?
I want to say something. I would like to address you, but I'd also like permission to address Catherine when I'm done with addressing you guys.
You can, but when you have your comments to Ms. Treadway, I want you to look at me more.
I will. I can do that.
Please go ahead.
Angelica is a gift to me. She's a gift to me from God because she's my goddaughter. To know what it is to be her child, I don't know that, but to care for one, I do. Luis Angel was more than just my goddaughter's son. He was my breakfast buddy. We would eat breakfast via video, sing, have a morning. He would tell me about he was going to go to his grandma's, or if he went to his abuelos, or, you know. At the funeral home, they asked what was his likes. It wasn't too many. He was only 3. My goddaughter and Louis, they were young, but they were trying to build something, and the family is family. You pull together, you whatever, you know, you do what you got to do. He got a job. They had the 2 babies. They tried to make a life. Sometimes things went left, sometimes things went right, but they always met up in the middle for the kids, you know. I'd like to thank the court for everyone that's here, because this ain't just, I know you guys see this every day probably, unfortunately, but to us this is like, there's no words. They got another son, but it's another son. It's not that son. It's not his first son. And the other son fills the room with joy and light. But there's always going to be that part that's always going to belong to somebody that's not there. And I don't know who's parents and who's not parents, and if your mothers, godmothers, cousins, sisters, if you've taken care of a child, that's a joy, that's an honor. For Catherine, I want her to know we treated her like family. When we ate, she ate. When I came over to the house and I bring something for the boys, I make sure I bring something sometimes for her kids too. I have sadness for her. Sadness. I have sadness because she's looking for something in somebody that's not going to give it to her. Never. You got kids. You got gifts that were given to you. Look for that love in them. Look for that love in your kids. And I pray that God watches and puts a hedge of angels around them, because they deserve that. And the odd thing is that I pray that for you too, because you was family to us. I don't know if you want to say something.
Mr. Diaz, so just for the record, she referenced her goddaughter, Angelica, Angelica, and the name of the little boy is Luis Angel, Luis.
She has a J in her name, I'm sorry. Angelica, her name is Angelica. A-N-J.
Thank you. My apologies. I
No,
meant it the
I'm
first
just
time.
saying, no, I know.
I want to make sure.
I'm the crazy aunt, I'm sorry.
I love it. I love that. I want to make sure we have a record and an accurate record of what you have said. It's very important. Mr. Diaz, anything you wish to say? You were here every day.
It's hard to talk. I want to. All I can say is it's been very hard for me in this whole process and everything. I just have a. I'm sorry.
You take your time, sir, and if you don't want to say anything else, you don't have to.
I want to say thank you to the prosecutors, the detective, and the police, and you as well. All I can say is all of this has been hard and stressful. I haven't been myself since I lost my first child. That's all I gotta say. And thank you.
Because the photos that you're holding are beautiful. That little baby, you can see the joy, just even from, you're probably 15 feet away from me. It just radiates joy, that little soul. Thank you for showing that to me.
Thank you.
Judge, with that said, we ask you to sentence these defendants. We ask you to use your discretion in both. When it comes to Catherine Treadway, Judge, we're asking for you to sentence her within that agreed range, 15 to 22, and recognize the role she played here. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of Mr. Sorensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to say a few things on his behalf. He has a family member and another individual that would like to speak, and he would also like to address the court. But I'll go first. What the prosecutor stated was correct. The summer of 2023, my client was making horrible decisions, which culminated in this horrible event in September of that year. And he came to a realization that he had to make a change. And as the prosecutor also stated, it was at that point that he started making some good decisions, starting with the fact that his co-defendants in this case, who are all in their 30s, are not his friend. They're not looking out for the best interest of a 16-year-old. And he started to try to earn some forgiveness. He knows he may never earn the forgiveness of Luis Diaz's family. It's not up to him. But he has made several decisions since then. It doesn't mean that he shouldn't try, Your Honor. And he has been trying. When he addressed the court, I do believe that you'll find his remorse to be genuine in this case. He's a father now himself. This is a horrible incident that he was involved in. Unfortunately, he can't go back in time and change that conduct. He's also taken responsibility. The prosecutor is also correct when he initially spoke with the detectives. At a minimum, he was minimizing his role. But you saw 2 separate days on the witness stand him take responsibility for his conduct. And I think the prosecutors would agree he was instrumental in bringing 2 killers to justice. And that's what he did. Now, in addition to taking responsibility for his role, for his conduct here, he's also demonstrated to the court that he can change his behavior. You do have several letters, some written. I know Mr. Dolezal is here. He wrote a letter. He is the reentry director. He spent a lot of time with Jaden when he was in the detention center in juvenile court. I did also have a chance to speak with his social services coordinator in the detention center. The entire time he was in the detention center, they have a behavioral scale. He was always at a high level of behavior in the detention center. Something that he's very proud of. He achieved his high school diploma in the detention center, and he knows at best case scenario for him, he's going to spend 10 years in prison. But what he wants to do is continue his education in prison, take advantage of whatever programming they have, as he was doing in the detention center this entire time. And hopefully, Your Honor, he's demonstrated to you that even though, and here, this is not to in any way minimize his conduct or his role in this, but to show that he has taken responsibility, that he has, 10 years for a 16-year-old is a long, long time. He's 18 now, but he was 16 at the time. And he is, hopefully, he's demonstrated to this court, to the Diaz family, that the low end of that range, even potentially a 10-year sentence, is warranted for his conduct because he stepped up to the plate. Because the youngest person involved in this is the one that took responsibility and made sure those that were also responsible were taken to justice, Your Honor. And I know Mr. Dolezal had a couple of comments he wanted to supplement that letter that you have. We would also ask you to consider the other letters and certificates showing that he has tried to make the most of his time and better himself, and to ensure that when he does get out, he's not making these same bad decisions he did when he was a 16-year-old. And if I could introduce Mr. Dolezal.
Yes. This is Spencer, S-P-E-N-C-E-R, last
Yes, Your
name D-O-L-E-Z-A-L, sorry. He is the Reentry and Advocacy Director and Mentor, Writers in Resistance.
Residence, Your Honor.
I'm having trouble.
You're fine. You're fine.
Okay. Mr. Dolezal, what would you like to say?
So I just wanted to add to the letter. So in over a decade of doing this work with population that Jaden's a part of, it's rare to find a young person who was making the poor decisions that they were making, who switches and decides that they are ready to move forward, that they're ready to show their remorse with their actions. So in our time working with Jaden in our creative writing workshops at the Juvenile Detention Center starting in November of 2023, so shortly after he arrived there, to his time being involved one-on-one with me in our mentoring program, Jaden showed that he was committed to moving forward, to changing not only his mistakes and trying to atone for those and show remorse for what he had done, what he was involved in, but also to change the environment that he was a part of. So he had a reputation at the Juvenile Detention Center as somebody who brought others up with him as he was trying to do the right thing. He voluntarily involved himself in as many programs as he could while he was there. And in my professional experience, it's like I said, it's rare to have somebody that committed to moving forward. And I think he shows very high potential for rehabilitation. And so, from my professional stance involvement in his case, I would just ask that you are lenient in that sentence. Look at the 10-year side of that range, knowing that he's willing to serve that time out of his remorse for his actions, but also giving him the opportunity to rehabilitate and re-enter society as a productive member who's willing to move forward and help others move forward. Thank you, Your Honor.
And his aunt would also like to speak.
Morning.
Good morning, can you tell me your name?
Shannon Carpenter.
Can you spell that?
Shannon, S-H-A-N-A-N. Carpenter, C-A-R-P-E-N-T-E-R.
I can barely hear you, so take a moment to get yourself together so that when you speak, I can hear you. And that your words will have more meaning.
I'm sorry. Carpenter, C-A-R-P-E-N-T-E-R. made a bad decision. I think that on behalf of him and the rest of my family, first we'd like to apologize for the loss of Luis. Since then, he has realized that he has a daughter also, so his daughter's gonna grow up without him, as long as that he is incarcerated. And we're hoping for the best possible outcome, that for his siblings and his mother, and for their family as well, just to get the justice, because we all understand that this is a process. And we just ask you to be merciful.
Okay, thank you.
Right, Your Honor, if Jay could now address the court.
Mr. Sorensen, is there anything that you wish to say?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead, sir.
Before I get too deep into my statement, I want to first apologize not only to the victim, but their family, my family, and also the courts for being here under the circumstances. I've sat in my cell for months trying to figure out what I would say when the time came. And now that I'm here, I still don't feel like my words show how sorry or remorseful I am. It still doesn't excuse the fact that of me knowing right from wrong. So I pray asking God and my victims for forgiveness. I pray asking God for knowledge, wisdom, and a deeper understanding of life. I feel like He answered my prayer shortly after, incarcerated, I found out that I had a baby girl. Now I see everything more clearly in a different light. The thought of somebody hurting my baby girl will crush my world, so I feel for the family. Throughout life, I had a little to no guidance on how to navigate life. Because of that, I made mistakes. In my head, I turned everyone from a mistake into a lesson. I've learned that one illegal thing could take you away from your loved ones. I've learned that it could scar someone who is on the same journey as me. I've learned to ask for help instead of trying to take the world on my shoulders. I learned I should be a pillar to the community instead of a problem. Basically, I learned who I am. I can go on and on about but we would never get on with these proceedings. Before I end this, I would want to apologize to the victims again. Hopefully one day they can forgive me. Thank you for your time, your honorable judge, and whatever time you give me, I thank you in advance.
Thank you, Mr. Sorensen. You can have a seat.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Lastly, I would just say that you have a wide discretion here of 10 to 20 years. We would submit to you that while our client's conduct was horrible at the time, that he has done nearly everything he can since that day to earn this family's forgiveness and to hopefully you find more than a 10-year sentence. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you speak on behalf of Ms. Redway?
I will, Your Honor.
When you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, on behalf of Catherine Treadway, we've had the opportunity to review the pre-sentence investigation report that was ordered by the court. In addition to the pre-sentence investigation report, we have submitted to the court, as well as to the state of Ohio, a psychological assessment of Catherine Treadway that was authored by Dr. Katie Connell, a forensic psychologist, who over the course of this case has met with Catherine Treadway a number of times. And our purpose in submitting that to the court prior to sentencing was to provide the court with a lot of additional information regarding our client, Catherine Treadway. But as the court can probably see from reviewing that evaluation, there's a large portion of it that talks about I guess I could only describe it as extremely dysfunctional relationship that Catherine Treadway has had over the course of years with Juan Davis. Our client is 31 years old now. She was 15 to 16 years old when she first got involved with Mr. Davis. And I'm not standing here to try to make this about blaming Juan Davis, because people make their own decisions. But I can only describe that relationship as highly dysfunctional, abusive, controlling, intimidating, all of those things. And it was a relationship that Ms. Treadway had a very difficult to impossible time of getting herself out of. And if there is one good thing that comes out of the resolution of this case, she knows that she's going to prison, is that hopefully this will bring a conclusion to that relationship. Probably the only good thing that came out of that relationship was 2 of her children that she had with Juan Davis, who are now being cared for by other members of Ms. Treadway's family. So in addition to that psychological evaluation that we submitted to the court, there were a number of letters that we submitted to the court as well as to the state of Ohio from Ms. Treadway's family members. In that regard, there are a number of family members that are here present in support of Ms. Treadway that are here today. She has 2 sisters that are present, 2 nieces, 1 sister-in-law, and 1 of her brothers. So first and foremost, Catherine Treadway is before the court today accepting responsibility for her involvement in this. She was not a person that sat through the trial of this. She is not a person that chose to go to trial in this. Back on January 27th, we had argued a motion to separate her for purposes of trial, and ultimately that was a request that was granted by the court for a separate trial on her behalf. The very next day, on January 28th of 2025, she entered her plea of guilty to the involuntary manslaughter with a 3-year gun specification, 2 counts of attempted murder, a count of felonious assault, and a count of having weapons under disability. By way of her plea, by way of being here before the court today, she accepts responsibility for her actions, for her role in this. And I can stand here and talk to you about how she's apologetic to the family of Luis Diaz, which we are. A huge loss, an irreplaceable loss. But that means much more coming from Ms. Treadway than it does coming from Mr. McDonald or myself. In reviewing what has been submitted to the court by way of the PSI, by way of the psychological evaluation, I think the court can come to the appreciation that while Catherine Treadway has made some huge mistakes, bad decisions, no doubt about that, she is a person that has no criminal history. She has no history of violence. She has no history of antisocial behavior. She has no history of addiction. She does have a history, again, of being involved in a highly dysfunctional relationship with Juan Davis. And I can't begin to explain to the court, how that relationship plays into a lot of the bad decisions that she has made along the way, including the behavior that brings us here today. And she's not making excuses for that. We're not making excuses for that. She was clearly at the property that day. There's never been any allegation that she was firing a gun, that she had possession of any weapon. I know that it is the state's position that her role in this case was different. She blames herself for putting herself in this situation. She knows that she is going to serve a lengthy prison sentence. She has lost a lot in her life, not nearly what the family of Luis Diaz and other families have lost here. I don't mean to put that out there as any sort of a comparison. But she has made her mistakes, and she will live with her mistakes. We are asking the court, she stands before the court, first and foremost, Judge, prepared to accept whatever sentence the court imposes on her. But we are asking the court to consider imposing a 15-year prison sentence on Catherine Treadway. She's accepted responsibility for her role. Even the probation department noted her as being a low to moderate risk in their risk assessment. And I think that's probably given the fact of her lack of a criminal history. But again, she is prepared to make the best use of her time, to accept whatever sentence the court imposes on her. And given that, I think she is hopeful that once she moves forward, makes the best use of her time in the institution, that in some way she will come out of this a better person than she went in. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Treadway, is there anything that you wish to say?
Yes, Your Honor, and I also would like to say something to the family as well.
Okay, go ahead.
I would like to apologize to y'all and say I apologize for the role that I played. And Your Honor, I would like to say to the court, I take full responsibility for the role that I played, and whatever time you give me, I'm going to go down there and make the best of my time. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have considered everything that's been presented today. I've reviewed the documents that were filed in support of both Mr. Sorensen and Ms. Treadway. I've reviewed the pre-sentence investigation. And even though these two individuals resolved their cases prior to trial, I sat through a 10-day trial. So I'm well aware of the facts for each of these individuals. I agree wholeheartedly with the state of Ohio. The irony, that little baby was sitting in his car seat, the safest place where he should be, in his car with his mother, and that's where he lost his life. The irony of that will just never be lost on me, and I keep thinking of him. I don't know that I'll ever forget this. Ms. Rios, you said that we see this all the time. We don't. We don't see this all the time. This case is different.
She put him in the car. She put him in the car.
I know.
She had time to say something.
I know. I want you to know, though, that your case is different. And it is not an everyday thing. Your experiences, your hurt, it's different than what I see every single day. I see most of this family who has been here every single day of this trial. Your faces are familiar to me. I don't know that I'll ever forget, he was 42 inches tall. He was tall. He was tall. That's tall for a little baby. And the 4 individuals involved here stole that baby's future. He's never going to get the chance to see how tall he eventually would have been. He's never going to get the chance to grow up, to fall in love, to get a driver's license, and then maybe one day put his own kids in the safest place that they should be, which is the car seat. And for that, I am so incredibly heartbroken for all of you. I cannot even begin to give you closure because he's gone. I can give you accountability. And And I thank you for the courage it took for all of you to be here every single day of this trial, and for each of you to come here today. Mr. Sorensen, I'll start with you. I have considered the purposes and principles of sentencing under Revised Code Section 2929.11, serious and recidivism factors relevant to these offenses and yourself, pursuant to Revised Code 2929.12, and the need for deterrence, incapacitation, rehabilitation, and restitution. I do not condone what you did. Who knows the position you would have been in had your weapon fired. But you will pay the price for your decisions that you made that day. You've accepted that. You accepted that plea, and you accepted the sentence that comes with it. But I do see something different in you. The state of Ohio has expressed similar sentiments. I even felt it when you were testifying during the trial. I felt the remorse. The decisions that you made after your arrest allowed justice for that baby, for Ms. Figueroa, for Mr. Mateo, and for Ezekiel. I don't often, and I don't know if I've ever seen people express remorse and regret and then back that up with changed behavior. You've shown that today. You were young. The greatest chance for change is now. So I hope you see it through. Otherwise, you will not only have wasted that baby's life, but your life as well. So, with all of that, count 4 is the qualifying offense, and I'm sentencing you. Well, first of all, the 3-year firearm specification, you will serve that prior to and consecutive to the qualifying offense in count 4, which will be 8 to 12 years. Count 7, the sentence is 8 years. Count 10, the sentence is 8 years. Count 13, the sentence is 6 years. And on count 14, the sentence is 18 months. The firearm specification runs consecutive, and the remaining charges will run concurrent for a total prison sentence of 11 to 15 years in prison. You have 507 days of jail credit that will go towards your sentence. It does not go to the firearm specification time. Once you serve that mandatory first 3 years, then you'll get the credit for the time that you've served. You'll also get credit for the future days you spend here before you're transported to the appropriate institution. After you serve that mandatory portion of your sentence, you do have the right to earn good time credit. It ranges anywhere from 5 to 15% against your minimum sentence for good behavior. I have the right to deny your good time credit, but before that could happen, I would assign an attorney to represent you and conduct a hearing in court. You will be released when you finish your minimum term unless the Ohio Department of Rehabilitations and Corrections determines that you must remain in prison for bad conduct. This decision is made by the Ohio Department of Rehabilitations and Corrections. If you are not released when your minimum term ends, you will serve an additional specified period of time and be given a new release date. You will be released on that date unless you are again denied release for bad conduct. This process repeats until you are either released or until you finish your maximum term. It's going to be difficult. You have to, every single day, remember why you decided to change your behavior. Otherwise, you'll go right back down to the road that you were living before you were arrested. And it's with hope and prayer that that's not what happens for you. When you are finished serving your prison sentence, the State of Ohio Adult Parole Authority will have a mandatory period of supervision. It's called post-release control. It's for a minimum of 2 years, up to a maximum of 5 years. If you fail to comply with the terms of any post-release control supervision, the Adult Parole Authority could modify or extend your supervision and make it more restrictive. They could incarcerate you for up to half of the sentence I've just imposed here today. They could could charge you with a new offense called escape, another felony where you would face additional prison time. And if you commit a new crime while on post-release control, you could face the maximum penalties under the law for that new crime committed. I'm finding that you are indigent. I'll waive the fines and court costs that are associated with this case. Ms. Treadway. The case is different. It's a lot different. I will never understand the coldness, the ice in your veins that was needed to put that baby in the car seat, to move your own car out of harm's way, to continue to call Juan Davis, first after the gunshots stopped firing, and only then call 911. I will never understand that as a human being. I acknowledge that you have no prior criminal history, but without your actions, Luis would be alive. That I can never disregard. Count 4 is the qualifying offense. I'm sentencing you to 3 years in prison on the firearm specification time, which will be served prior to and consecutive to the qualifying offense of, on count 4, which is 10 to 15 years in prison. Count 7, 10, and 13, the sentence is 7 years in prison. Count 19, the sentence is 3 years in prison. Further, I am finding that consecutive sentences are warranted in the present case, and I'm ordering Ms. Treadway to serve the sentences on counts 4 and 7. Those relate to Ms. Figueroa and Mr. Diaz, young Mr. Diaz. After reviewing the record and the evidence, I find that consecutive sentences are necessary to punish Ms. Treadway, to protect the public from future crime, and are not disproportionate to the conduct or danger posed by Ms. Treadway, and that Ms. Treadway's conduct involving in this case was part of a course of conduct, and that the harm caused was so great that a single prison term would not adequately reflect the seriousness of her conduct. So the 3-year firearm specification will run consecutive to count 4, which will run consecutive to count 7. Counts 10, 13, and 19 will run concurrent with each other and with the remaining charges for a total prison sentence of 20 to 25 years. It is possible for you to earn good time credit once you finish that mandatory 3-year firearm specification. It ranges from 5 to 15%, and it goes against your minimum sentence for good behavior. I have the right to deny your good time credit, but before that could happen, I would have a hearing and appoint an attorney to represent you. You will be released when you finish your minimum term, unless the Ohio Department of Rehabilitations and Corrections determines that you must remain in prison for bad conduct. This decision is made by the Ohio Department of Rehabilitations and Corrections. If you are not released when your minimum term ends, you will serve an additional specified period of time and be given a new release date. You will be released on that date unless you are again denied release for bad conduct. This process will repeat until you are either released or until you finish your maximum term. You have 508 days of jail credit that will go towards the sentence I've just imposed. It will come into play once you finish the mandatory 3-year firearm specification. When you are finished serving your prison term, the State of Ohio Adult Parole Authority will have a mandatory period of supervision. It's a minimum of 2 years, up to a maximum of 5 years. If you fail to comply with the terms of any post incarcerate you for up to half of the sentence I've imposed today. We could charge you with a new offense called escape, another felony where you would face additional prison time. And if you commit a new crime while on post-release control, you could face the maximum penalties under the law for that new crime committed. I'm also finding that you are indigent, that you will be serving a lengthy prison sentence, and I will waive fines, court costs that are associated with this case. Anything further on behalf of your client, Mr. Hoplich?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Mr. Milo?
No, Your Honor.
Anything further on behalf of your client, Mr. Choi?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. McDonald?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Anything further on behalf of the state of Ohio?
No, Judge, thank you.
Thank you. We are adjourned.
Love you, Kathy. Keep your head up.
Stay strong, girl. We love you.
Love you, good.
Your Honor, thank you.
Your phone up. Love you with all my heart.
Hey, Kara.
Tomorrow we have trial.
Oh, is it up here?
No, it's in,
And how long is the judge? Is the judge here something you right now?
No.
Oh.
No, I just couldn't talk to Lauren.
Through staying.
Oh, he told me from her husband. I saw that paper. He told me. And he was like, no. I always did that. I don't think she even knew
Lisa, Kevin's just gonna have to cover this, because I have to be at, I think it's gonna be at least an hour. I gotta tell this. Well,
Ever tell your sister we were doing battle or?
yeah.
Question this, should I bring in Dave and everyone has a
Destination. Yeah. Radar. My dad usually lunch there.
Let's see what time. Has to be with Jessica.
He's gonna get the same thing he had last time. And he did. She just looked at it. So Leonardo's moved out on us. I can't believe that.
Well, maybe I can say, you know, what we still would be in shock of Once I start talking about it, it's going to get blast.
That's clearly. I said, I think that was it.
That's what
The judge was that.